Yes. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to VM Last Dance finale recap. And I had to bring the OG of OGs, my guy, Impy. What it do, baby?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me again. Super pumped. We did the first two episodes, right? So it's only right that we did the last two as well.
Yeah, you bring in the big guns to intro and you bring the big guns for the outro. You know what I'm saying?
Feels good to finally be. I mean, not finally, but it's just like I look forward to those. Like I look forward to those episodes, um, just to kind of get basketball back into my life in some way, shape, or form. I said this at the beginning. It's definitely it's been so educational for me. Um, I watched basketball in the 90s. I wouldn't say I absorbed it, but you know what I mean? Like I watch it. Like I remember watching the Knicks and I remember watching the Heat and the Lakers, early 2000s, right? I remember watching it. I didn't absorb it though. I feel like when I watch sports, especially basketball now, I absorb it. I'm understanding everything that's going on, how the rosters are constructed, how they're actually playing the game itself. But back then, you're younger, you're just watching a game, right? You're watching two teams play against each other. So for me to be able to kind of go take a step back and really kind of understand everything that was going on, the teams, right? Like we learned so much about the Pacers, right? These
Word.
two episodes, and I thought it was
Knicks,
the Knicks as well. That
just
was
in
two,
general.
just yeah, for sure. By the way, that Knicks team was an 8 seed, right? Kind of crazy.
The year after.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I hate to cut you off,
No, it's
but
fine.
I didn't realize that after that 98 season, bro, the next year was the lockout.
Yes, that's
So,
next season was a shortened season.
VM style, we'll be jumping around all over the place. But, dude, think about this. Reinsdorf, I guess for the first time, says why he dismantled the team, and MJ saw it, which, dude, one of my favorite things about this entire series has been this isn't an iPad, but let's just pretend it is, where MJ is just looking at people like make comments, like the Gary Payton thing, the Reinsdorf looking at it, and just in general, him looking at there and getting the feedback. That's been awesome. And MJ response to that was like, yo, bro, you don't think these dudes would have maybe taken the veterans minimum, cheap plug, or maybe been like, yeah, bro, we'll run it back and the exposure we're gonna get, we're gonna make some money off endorsements because we'll be playing in June, and then it's a shorter season. So you got to think that what is MJ at that point? He's 34, 35.
I
Michael Jordan in 98 is 35. So like you're looking at that. Sorry, he's 34, right? And he just comes off a season where he plays 4,000 minutes, which is usually like a number that's a lot. That's a lot of minutes to take in. But then it's a short season, bro. 50 games. Knicks are the 8th seed. Like, yo, the Bulls could have been like cruising and be a 7th seed and make the finals. No,
You should have been able to defend your title at the bare minimum, right? Like that's what it comes down to, man. It just comes down to being able to defend your title. Like I understand the perspective of all of these guys are about to hit the open market. We can't pay all of these guys, but like Jordan said, I'm sure if there was a conversation of, hey, everyone, let's just pause for a moment. Let's just try this one more time. Everyone sign a 1-year deal, and let's see if we can get it going. That sounds all fine and dandy. Just to play devil's advocate, Jerry Krause seems to have been, obviously he was the architect, and you have to imagine the idea of, having cap flexibility and also the ability to, and this all matters none when in the grand scheme of chasing a 7th ring, right? Like what I'm about to say doesn't matter because if you have a chance to win a championship, you do it. But, in his mind, he's probably saying if we sign all these guys to 1-year deals, maybe we're missing out on other opportunities with other players. Maybe he thinks they're not going to perform as well a year later. A lot of those guys are kind of going into the end of their career, right? Like Ron Harper, Steve Kerr, all these older guys.
Pippen also.
Pippen as well, who Pippen, it seems like Pippen was getting hurt left and right, unfortunately. So just to play devil's advocate, if you do sign everyone to a 1-year deal, It could potentially, hamstring your team in the future, especially considering some of those guys were old and worn down. I disagree with all of what I just said, and I do agree that you should have just tried one more time. You have the greatest basketball player of all time.
What about the idea of him saying that we're going to be wasting money on these contracts with these older players, and the ROI isn't going to be that high on getting back from them what you're giving them? But it's then also on the flip side, you're like, hey, dickhead, you have fucking MJ, right? Like, you don't think you're going to make money back for having MJ? And how many people, bro, they were paying $2,000 in the 90s scalping to get tickets to go see a Warriors, the then Warriors Bulls game on like a Tuesday night. Like, yo, you're going to make your money back. To me, it's the craziest thing is, yo, when we throw the term generational talent, and then I think there's a tier higher than that, which I think this documentary did a great job on showing you how big MJ really was in a non-social media era.
Yes.
So if you have what would be your Mount Rushmore of athletes that Barack Obama said this too, that outgrew their sport? Because I think it's like MJ, Ali. This
Tiger
might sound
Woods.
crazy. You said Tiger Woods. Yeah, Tiger Woods would be up there. And, bro, you know who I think has made a strong case for that? Conor McGregor.
Interesting.
I think Conor McGregor has surpassed the UFC. Like, he's become its own entity. He's become bigger than the sport.
Yeah.
Think about his crossover appeal, his mainstream appeal. Like, Conor McGregor, bro, this might sound crazy, but I think he's in that tier with those guys because
he's an international guy as well.
Yeah, and he's outgrown the sport, bro. Like, Conor McGregor is such a big star. And then when you look at MJ too, David Stern, I thought was a really he contributed to this documentary. Obviously, you had all the conspiracy theories about, like, he suspended MJ and held him out the league because of all this shit. But it's like, yeah, this dude, when the NBA first started, what was it, 35 countries the NBA was in? And then at the end of 98, there was 250 countries. Like, that's MJ, bro.
Yeah. And I think the key point of it, you said it was before the social media age. He became this larger-than-life superstar, before everything that we know so regularly, now it didn't exist. There was no Twitter, no Instagram. Mm-hmm. Even like the internet wasn't as, even the internet isn't what it is now, right? So, the newspapers were a huge, form of media, and obviously TV, and radio. But it's just so crazy to imagine that this guy became this huge polarizing figure, and essentially probably the greatest athlete of all time. Before all the information was so accessible, that is truly the craziest thing. And I would consider like maybe Wayne Gretzky on that list, but he just was a dominant at his sport. But I don't necessarily know if he was as kind of as known of a figure. But the Gretzky is the only one that I could think of.
Yeah, Gretzky from a standpoint of how dominant they were in the sport. And when you think of GOAT, like if you were to do a sports Mount Rushmore of GOATs, like Gretzky's the hockey guy without a doubt. Right?
And it's the consensus. That's the one sport.
He has more points than anyone else in hockey, and that's if you take away his goals, which is crazy. Like, just his assists alone.
That's the one consensus where every other sport, the greatest of all time is generally, there's an argument to be made. At least you can at least make an argument for all the other kind of, different sports. But I think for hockey, there's one consensus that Wayne Gretzky is the greatest, and that's the only reason why I would consider him there. But I think he lacked some of that polarizing. That some of that star power, but nonetheless, going back to the original point, it's a shame that they didn't get to win that 7th ring for whatever reason it was. The cap, and it's crazy is because there's even part of the interview with Reinsdorf where, Jerry Krause at the beginning of the season says, "This is Phil's last year. This is Phil's last year," and he was okay with that. Jerry, it seemed like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you fast forward to the end of that season. Jerry Reinsdorf was on the record in the interview saying, we would have, he offered him the job again, which basically said the owner, you know, made the decision ahead of the general manager, which does happen. I guess it was, Phil. Was Phil the domino?
Well, yeah. And MJ says that too, where the famous quote was Jerry Krause comes out and says Phil could go 82-0. He won't be the coach next year. It's like, how do you say that? Right? Like, yo, it's hard, son, to win a championship. And you have this once in an era type of talent. And bro, another thing that this documentary showed was how what a shitstorm Chicago was, the Bulls were until he got there. And then all of a sudden they're up there with the Celtics and the Lakers as far as like, yo, when you think NBA, you think of three teams. You think Lakers at the time, Lakers, Celtics, and Bulls, like in the 90s, like after the 90s, at the start of the 2000s. Those are the teams you thought about. And then what happens in the 2000s, first three seasons of the 2000s, the Lakers go on to win. So that's all you thought about were those three organizations. Bro, there was something where they won like 68 or 69% of the titles since the start of the NBA was Lakers, Celtics, and Bulls. Just fucking crazy to think about.
That is crazy.
And then we're Knicks fans. Dolan always puts his nose where it doesn't belong. But this is one of those scenarios where if you're a fan, you're like, yo, fucking Reinsdorf, good morning, wake up, bro. Like, step in there. This shit doesn't happen now, by the way.
It's tough though, right? Because it's easy for MJ and easy for everyone to say, yeah, they would have done it, but then at the same time, a lot of the documentary was, highlighted how upset Scottie Pippen was about being underpaid, and you just wonder, how much, if you had to pay Scottie at market value for that next season, because it's hard to imagine after everything that he went through, right? It's really truly hard for me to think Scottie Pippen would have taken a huge pay cut, right? Because it just doesn't make sense after he literally threatened to sit out for the entire season. Now, that doesn't mean you can't get creative with some of the other contracts, but you got to imagine that now you're paying Jordan what you're going to pay Jordan. Then you have to imagine that you're going to give Scottie Pippen a raise, right?
Yep.
It really seemed tough. It did seem tough. And that's kind of, sometimes, I don't know. I'm really on the fence because would I have wanted them to chase 7? Of course. But at the same time, you got to think of, all of the individuals in that scenario too. Like, would Pippen really have taken a pay cut, or at least, he was not taking anything close to what he was paid. They said that he was paid, towards the bottom of the league, and that's just not going to happen. Jordan going to take a big pay cut? Rodman, like, Joe, could you? I was thinking about the chair shot that you tweeted, Dennis Rodman in NWO.
Yeah.
Game 2 going and being on TV. First of all, that would never happen in today's world. But is that guy taking a pay cut? I just think that it was a huge mess too, right? Like, this guy's injured and underpaid. Jordan with all the gambling stuff. Dennis Rodman is in the NWO. It just seemed like there was so much commotion going on at the same time, right? It's like, how can you do this in another year? It's just like there's so much going on.
You could do it another year because you're winning. And I think winning cures everything. How many times have we talked about, bro, you put up with someone's bullshit if they're talented. And that goes to anything.
Yeah.
Like, that goes to anything. It could be if you're a boss of a company and I had a customer of mine, bro, who would show up to work every day fucked up, like smelling of Jack Daniels at like 7:30 in the morning. And his boss would be one of our customers too. I'm not going to say any names, but his boss would come and see him, and he'd be like, man, I don't know how he does it. And I asked his boss one time, I'm like, yo, how do you deal with that? Like, isn't it maybe embarrassing to the company? Like, he goes to all these boardroom meetings and shit, and he goes traveling. He was in global business, international business, and he would go to all these, like, he'd go to Italy, he'd go to France, he'd go to Japan and represent the company. He's like, Nick, let me tell you something, man. the guy is so talented. I don't know how he does it. Maybe that's his like performance enhancer where he needs to be drunk and high or whatever. But he's like, I put up with this BS because he delivers.
Yeah.
And yo, as a Giants fan, there were stories about Bill Parcells talking about Lawrence Taylor. He'd be like, listen, bus leaves for the stadium at 10 a.m. on Sunday. You better be there. And Lawrence Taylor was like, yes, sir. I'll be there. And then like with Rodman, bro, like you think if Rodman was Bill Cartwright, he'd be able to go and be a part of the Wolfpack in the NWO? Like, no, bro, you put up with it because like you knew this guy was going to deliver.
Yeah.
You think you could go on a Vegas bender in the middle of the season if it wasn't for him like delivering? Like that was one of those things where it's a rare breed of athlete where you can do mad crazy shit off the court, off the field, and still be productive. It ain't always like that too. You know this.
Yeah.
We've been following sports our whole lives. How many guys' careers have spiraled out of control because they can't control themselves off the court?
Off the field. Now it's happening more than ever in the NFL, at least, with all these guys don't know what to do themselves during quarantine. That's another conversation.
They need the league back, bro. They're bored. They got nothing to do. Fucking DeAndre Baker. Congrats.
But I also learned a lot about the flu game, which I feel like I've heard that it was like a hangover game.
Yeah. There's been
right.
A lot of conspiracies around MJ, right? Like so many different reasons as to why things happen.
Well, some of my older friends, like older, like at least older for us, in their early 40s, I was hanging out with them, and this was before, obviously, and we came to the conversation of Jordan. I think it was before the documentary was set to come out, but like they were like teasing it or whatever. And I remember talking about some of the specific highlights of Jordan's career, and one thing that they did mention was, everyone knows, air quotes, that Jordan was suspended, that he didn't just leave the league, and that the flu game was a hangover game. He's saying this as this is something like it's been widely accepted and everyone knows. And I'm just like, I don't necessarily know if that's true. I wasn't around for it, so I can't say that I was watching all the TV coverage and I was, reading all the reports at the time. But I definitely thought the flu thing was interesting for sure.
Yeah, dude. How do you let that happen too? Like if you're his team, do you let him not the Bulls, like his crew? Like how do you let him eat that? Especially when you had the suspicion to it, like 5 guys delivering a pizza, bro. Like that's kind of sketchy.
How was he the only one that ate the pizza though? I kind of just that was one thing that made me like,
come on, fam.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Come on, man. Like, and they did a good job of, and he was he did a good job of like stating that fact for everyone to hear. Like, I was the only one that ate pizza. Like that's like to signify like he was the only one that could have got sick because he was the only one that ate the pizza. Like they did a good job. They did a good job of highlighting that as well. Either way, regardless of what happened, hungover, sick, flu, like unbelievable performance. But that was something that I learned as well.
Well, the one craziest thing was the common theme with MJ throughout this whole documentary is he tried to find an edge because I feel like he knew he was so much better than everyone else. So how could he fire himself up? How can he get himself into that savage killer mode? Like that one quote, he was like, yo, I'm going to go for a kill today. I'm going to get a kill today. It's like he was a cerebral assassin and he needed to get into that state of mind to destroy you. And bro, I don't know about you, Imp, but did you know all that shit about Brian Russell? Brian Russell?
Brian Russell.
Brian Russell. By the way, calling him Byron my whole life. So that was another takeaway too. I didn't know that they had that interaction when he was playing baseball. And Stockton and Malone, at first I'm like, yo, why is he that cool with them? And then I remember, oh shit, the Dream Team. They all were fucking together.
Shouts to Karl Malone for going on the team bus after they lost.
That was dope. I fucked with that because, man, that can't be easy, dude. Like to lose twice and just be like, yo, I'm gonna beat a bigger man. And I think that was also a personal thing too, where it was a relationship with him and Mike.
Yeah. And
The Byron Russell thing.
yeah, no. I just think that that reminded me obviously of the other. What was it like in the middle of the season or the middle of the documentary? Who was the kid on the Washington Bullets? Uh, that was like a fake. It never it never even really happened. It's just like here's Jordan again, like he said, trying to just amp himself up, and I just that's unbelievable. But how would you kind of wake a sleeping bear that is Michael Jordan? If you're Brian Russell, this doesn't make that much sense.
And that was there so many common themes in this whole doc where Nick Anderson says 4-5 ain't 2-3 anymore, and then Horace Grant is like,
I just say that.
And then Ahmad Rashad is listening to all these people talk. He's like, oh my God, just shut up, man. Don't anger him. George Carl.
Yeah.
Right? George Carl, don't say hi to him at a dinner. And then just everything about that. He tries to find an edge. And I think that's what makes him great, man.
That is what made him great.
You have to be that, would you call it arrogant or cocky? Like, what would you describe that as?
I wouldn't say it's arrogant or cocky. Like, I think it's smart. You try to motivate yourself, because that's the one thing that I would say is like, after you accomplish so much in your life, it's like, what motivates you, right? It's like being successful motivates a lot of people. Making a lot of money and being successful seems to be two things that motivate people. But at that point in his career, right, you're arguably the best player of all time already, right? You have all of this money. You are this larger than life icon. What's going to motivate you to be better than that? And it's like, that's it. He motivated himself. He didn't need anything else. And that's kind of, I think, like you said, that's what made him great, is his ability to motivate himself. It's crazy.
I really loved how much about his business he was, and that business being basketball.
Oh, so it's funny that you brought that up, because the one thing that I wrote down in my notes was, I think the fact that Jordan had the older entourage around him and he had such a mature crew. He even said it. He goes, I just had a bunch of old guys around me. He goes that they kept him in line. And I agree. Like, when you got, people not twice your age, but, you had the security guys were older than him, things of that nature. It's like, he's about his business. He wants to focus. Like, you can say all you want about, maybe he enjoyed gambling or whatever the case was. But at the end of the day, the guy didn't, he never really got let like tons of trouble surround him because of the circle he kept. He kept a mature group around him, which shows that, like, he was really about his business. Everything he did showed that he was about his business, but that was just like a small piece of it. Like, there's no games are going on. I'm hanging out with a 55-year-old and a 60-year-old. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not going out. He's not really doing anything crazy like that.
Nah, dude, that's a great fucking point, man. And I also think that it's a very interesting scenario, because just because someone's been around for so long doesn't mean that they're the right person to be around.
Yeah.
And he didn't know the security guards all his life, and he got close with them because they were protecting him, whether it was from paparazzi or fans or someone going to rob him or something. Who knows what he saw? Dude, he's the biggest star in the world.
Yeah.
Right? The circus that was following this dude everywhere he would go was out of control. We never saw something like that in the sports world, at least. And that's something that this documentary also showed, because it's very important to remember, dude, no social media, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Oh,
no, continue, my bad.
What I meant, before I forget, what I meant about him being about his business is he really harped on the idea of, if I was dropping 15 points a game, no one would buy these sneakers. So do I want to elevate my sneaker brand and my brand, the Jordan brand, Jumpman brand? Yeah, I do. But he wasn't going to, or at least in the documentary they didn't show, like, he wasn't flying to China to promote. He wasn't doing like these like meet and greets and shit. He's like, I'm going to get buckets, and that's going to help my brand ultimately grow. And then after the fact, like, it's become, talk about outgrowing a brand. Like, Jordan has outgrown Nike. It's still part of Nike, but it's like, Kanye West is still with Jay-Z under his record label, but like Kanye has outgrown that too. It's just one of those things where, like, Drake at one point, he outgrew Lil Wayne and Young Money.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of analogy I'm trying to make, but but he was really about his business. Like, yo, my business is basketball, and I'm a hoop. That's all I care about, and I want to win. Because when I win, you're gonna win also. Like, you don't think all these other dudes that won championships with him benefited from it?
Yeah, like they were. I remember I was watching Scott Burrell get interviewed. I forgot where it was. I think maybe Mike Greenberg interviewed him. And he was like, it seems like Michael Jordan wasn't necessarily the best teammate. Was it fun being on his team? And he goes, yeah, absolutely, because winning is fun. He goes, yeah, it may suck, you know, during the day-to-day grind here and there, different aspects of it may suck. He goes, but at the end of the day, winning cures everything. Like you said, being good at something really cures everything, and winning is fun. So although in the short term, in some of those specific moments, he may not have been the greatest teammate, but there's tons of all of his teammates after the fact that said, yeah, but he pushed us to be the greatest version of ourselves, and we won, and in turn, that's very that's fun. One thing that I wanted to talk about quickly was I've had this written down. Phil Jackson, ultimate personality manager, elite personality manager. Yep. Like, talk about what Rodman didn't show up to practice that day, the one day, and then they just like snuck him onto the team bus or whatever away from the media. Like, this guy just knows how to manage personalities. This guy just knows how to really work with people from all walks of life, and just I thought he was just an elite personality manager.
Shit, he was the guy pulling the strings.
Yeah.
Right? Like the puppeteer, is that the term?
Yep.
Right?
He knew when to press and he knew when not to press. He knew when to push what button. He did a really good job. Like you said, he was a great puppeteer. He pushed all the buttons the right way.
I think also his background, they showed in that one episode way back about like he was like kind of a hipster, and like he did acid.
Yeah.
And, like, he was mad. Like, he was kind of a loose cannon also, and that's how he was able to relate to Dennis Rodman. And then, I feel like Phil Jackson, the run with the Knicks, kind of was a black eye on how great he was, because he didn't work out with the Knicks. And he also didn't want that job with the Knicks, bro. They just threw him $15 million a year. He's like, all right, yeah, fuck it, why not?
And I think that was the case of like Phil. I think people didn't buy into what Phil wanted to do. I think it was I just think it wasn't going to work from the beginning. And we could talk about that. I could talk about this forever, but it's like Phil's recipe works, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he has all of these championships. And he's just kind of stuck in his ways of like, these are all of my accomplishments from doing it this way. If you do it this way, chances are we will be successful. And I just think that, people butted heads with him for whatever reason, and maybe people were right. Like, maybe the league did move, too fast, too soon, and it kind of was too fast for him, and the league did change, because there's no denying that the league changed. But I just think there was a lot of butting heads with Phil Jackson. But you're right. But that doesn't talk about him as a head coach, because him as a head coach,
head coach is completely different.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, you'd hope that, he had, the one thing, like you said, is he's a great puppet master, great at managing personalities, and you'd hope that he would have done a little bit of a better job, at least on that front, with the Knicks, in regards to just like managing personalities and keeping everyone together. But I think this does put Phil Jackson back into some positive light after all is said and done.
We got to talk about this NWO thing, because I've been waiting to see if they were going to show this whole documentary. And
so bonkers.
This dude went out during the finals. Think about it. The Giants are still getting shit for the boat trip a week before they went to play the Packers when they went to Miami. Let's go back even further. Jessica Simpson, Tony Romo, they go to Cabo during the bye week, and then they lose to the Giants in the divisional round in 2007. Got heat for that. Still gets heat for that in Dallas. Like, damn, what could have been? Like, were you focused? Yeah, this is how big wrestling was in the 90s, bro. This is prime Attitude Era. This is NWO. This is Hulk Hogan, Goldberg, Sting, Booker T going up against DX, Stone Cold, The Rock, Undertaker. And he just shows up on Nitro, which, back then, dude, in the 90s, Monday Night Raw, Monday Nitro, they were getting equivalent now to like World Series NBA Finals numbers. We're getting like 9 and 10 ratings.
That's crazy.
It's wild. Free television, like that wasn't a live sport. Like it was live entertainment, but it's theater, it's drama, it's pro wrestling. And him joining, like, if you're the Utah Jazz, bro, that can't be like in the back of your mind, just damn, these motherfuckers don't think we're nice.
Well, it was
get up and go.
It was crazy also because like they weren't really playing that well at that time, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like, did they lose game 1 or did they win game 1? They lose game 2.
They lost game 1, won game 2, and then he went to Nitro.
And two things on the WW and the WWF thing. Well, that was NWO. Sorry,
that was WCW.
WCW. My bad.
Yeah.
First, the comment that that Hulk Hogan makes. I don't know if you caught it. He was like, "I guess there are some things that are worth skipping practice for, brother," or whatever. I was like, I can't believe he just said that because he literally skipped practice during the NBA Finals to be on TV.
And what about Rodman? He was like, "Yo, I like having fun, like fucking mad girls." The GOAT, son, the GOAT. I left this documentary, honestly, if I was to do power rankings, other than Jordan, Rodman might be number 1.
Yeah.
Like, talk about a unique character, right? And, dude, everything is pro wrestling, man. Everything is pro wrestling. And then you have that tie into it, like, leaving. Imagine Travis Kelce, Super Bowl week. Shows up on SmackDown Friday night. Super Bowl's on Sunday. Friday night, you're just like live, and he's in another city. You're like, what?
Bro, he was also like doing physical activities, like hitting people with chairs.
Yeah, taking bumps.
Which is like, dude, like it's just so crazy that nothing even close to that would happen in today's world, which just makes it which makes it great watching it now. It's like, not only was the game different, but like everything behind the scenes was so different also. That's what just is really cool about the whole thing too. Did you catch what I sent you when I was texting you earlier? Or the Dan Le Batard poll was, do you feel like Phil Jackson? Do you feel like Michael Jordan's security guards better than his family? Yes or no? It was like an overwhelming yes.
Well, that was because you knew just how people are and how social media is. Everyone's been raving about this entire documentary. There was going to be backlash because
sorry to cut you off again, but the one thing that for certain is you could tell that it was made by like Michael Jordan's camp, or you could tell that.
Of course, yeah. But dude,
not to say it was one-sided, but I do think they could have dove into some of the other stuff a little bit more.
Right. So they don't talk about his wife at all. No mentioning of his wife. They briefly show the kids, but that's more of like, man, we don't want to go to Utah because it's crazy over there. And then we've seen even nowadays, like Russell Westbrook has gotten it into fans of Utah. Utah isn't exactly the most welcoming city to go play basketball in if you're a visiting team. Now imagine if you're Michael Jordan's family and this dude just put his hand through the heart of an entire state and ripped it out. And then you're going to go and sit courtside or sit in the stands with these savages.
Yeah.
They were going to be friendly to him. So yeah, they don't show much of his family. And that's probably the one critique of it. But I want to flip it on the other side. And maybe Jordan was like, yo, you want me to do all this stuff and I'll open up for you? I don't want this to be covered. And if you're Jason Heyer, who did this documentary, don't you think you're like, fine,
I'll take what I could get.
If you're giving me 99 of 100 chapters, I'm not going to bitch and moan about that one chapter, especially if you're going to open up in a way that you've never fucking opened up before. Yep. I think you sign up for that, bro.
All day. But Yeah, that was one thing that you could definitely get a sense of like where the documentary was coming from, what angle it was coming from. It was a great job though. It was sensational. Like made my Sundays way more enjoyable, obviously, but
I can't even
um,
hate them for that though, man, because he talked so much about
because
his
where else are you going to
dad.
get all of you're trading one thing to get the other, right? It's like you're
Yeah,
trading, the ability to get all this inside information and all this kind of first time information, just like you said, for skipping over one chapter. And you didn't necessarily even skip over it. More so, just you didn't dive as deep into those specific chapters as you touched those chapters at high levels rather than really digging in, because it's not like they did. It's not like they completely just ignored them. They spoke about them. They just, they let him give his piece on it, and that was really it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, dude, if I was to do a, because someone asked, I forgot who it was. It might have been SB Nation. They tweeted out, "Who would you want to see a 10-part documentary on in the sports world?" And yo, with no hesitation, I said Cristiano Ronaldo. Like, if you think of what that guy's been through and his stardom, like I think he's the highest followed athlete on social media. He's a megastar, bro. Like, how many times will we play FIFA and shit? And Joey used to always pick Portugal and just like dominate with Portugal. And like Ronaldo's just one of those guys where I wouldn't say he's outgrown the sport, but his brand is so powerful and so big. And if Ronaldo wanted to be like, yeah, yo, I don't want to talk about, if I was to do a documentary, right? And I don't know no like crazy story about Ronaldo. There were rumors that him and Kim Kardashian had a thing, like back in like 2012, 2013. And if he wanted to be like, yo, Nick, I'll give you everything. I just don't want to talk about that. I'm not gonna be like, no, you have to. It's like, bro, you're giving me 99 of 100 chapters. I can't bitch him no, bro.
Because then you're not going to get that information
Yeah,
directly
then he's
from the
gonna be like, yo,
source.
fuck you. I'm gonna do it with Impy. Impy's gonna be like, yo, you know what? Leave that out and leave out all the other stuff you don't want to talk about because you're giving me all these extra details. So I didn't really have a problem with it. Did you have
No,
a problem with it, or was it just something that crossed your mind?
it's just something that crossed my mind
Fair
because
enough.
um, I feel like I saw the same poll or the same tweet, or maybe a different tweet of like, who would you want? Who's this next, doc that you'd like to see about sports? My answer was Tiger Woods. And the reason this got me thinking is because, Tiger Woods has had, some issues, off the green, with, I think it was like the prostitute things going around, or, those affairs that he's had. And it's like, to really get that Tiger Woods documentary, perfected, you would have to dive into some of those off the course situations. Um, and that's kind of what got me going. I think they did a great job. It's not the end of the world at all. Yeah, so it wasn't a big deal to me. More so just something that I thought about as I was watching it, because I was thinking about that Tiger Woods thing as well.
I asked you this before we started recording. Talk about a comeback that Carmen Electra's been on. I mean,
Why is she like all over the internet now?
oh, dude, she's like, especially after the first time she made her debut, that was part 3 and 4. Like, she was everywhere. And then she makes an appearance again last night in the finale. What's the comp, bro? What's the comp of Carmen Electra in 2020? Because back then, again, no social media. She was the it girl. She was on all the covers of the magazines, and she was like it was like her and Pam Anderson were the two that everyone used to like fantasize over, and like that was the dream girl, that was the it girl. And who's that now? You gave me a good one. Share it with everyone.
So I said like pre Kanye Kim Kardashian, like
Chris Humphries,
Chris Humphries,
Kim
yeah,
Kardashian.
yeah, like at that time she was like all over the covers of magazines. I'm sure she's on the covers of magazines now. It's just not the same, right? I feel like Kim Kardashian back in the day was more like a sex icon. She had the sex tape earlier on in her career. She, she used her looks, right, as like this, like, as her appeal with her looks. Now she's kind of pivoted to like the family and the skin care. Or no, that's Kylie. But Kim Kardashian has kind of pivoted to other lanes of success, using other channels to create success. Whereas earlier on with Kim, it was like her looks, right? Her looks and kind of the sex appeal. So I would definitely say like a pre-Kanye, earlier on Kim Kardashian seems like, who Carmen Electra was. Do you have an answer?
I don't. I mean, great girl. That goes without saying. But I just can't think of it because I think it's so hard with social media, man. Because, like, how many, like, girls have 10, 20 million followers? And you're like, yo, I don't even know who this girl is. But she's, like, an influencer, which is now an actual job description. Like, yo, when you file taxes and shit, that's the one thing that you can actually file under is, like, influencer. That's a real, like, profession now. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I think that's a good one. I think that's really a good one. But it's hard for me to when I think of Kim Kardashian, I kind of just gravitate to her now.
We have to ask someone. We have to ask someone like in their early 40s.
Yeah,
someone that was around for both, but
Rodman.
like younger, like maybe like someone like that was like a teenager in the 90s. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Who could like speak to the sex appeal side of it, and like the covers and the TV and all that stuff. And then someone who's still relatively young now as well.
Look at Rodman's week and a half, right? Goes to Nitro, playing in the finals, hits 2 big free throws in that game too. In that game 3, that were like pivotal. He goes to the line and it's 72-72. And you even hear the announcer say like, oh, this might be one of the last people you would nominate to go take free throws. Not a really good free throw shooter. And then he kind of does the MJ shrug as he's coming back down the court. And then wins the title, has Carmen Electra in the hotel waiting. Iconic photo of them 2 kissing the trophy. Man, Rodman, you want to talk about a 10-part documentary series on someone. That guy is...
It's already in the works.
Yo, it has to be, bro. Think about him. Think about Rodman now, too. Like, doesn't he has like a great relationship with the dude from North Korea also.
Yes, Kim Jong-un.
They're like, he's gone over there and he's treated like royalty. Like, Rodman is a unique breed, bro. Unique breed. And I definitely popped when they showed the NWO stuff. But I think the lasting image is, where do you think that photo of the shot is in history? Like sports, or even for MJ? Is that the most iconic moment for him?
The trophy?
Nah, the shot over Russell.
No, I think it's funny. Like, I don't know, man. That's a good question. That's a tough one because I always gravitate towards like some form of a dunk, but I can't necessarily think of one. It's I think now that I'm kind of processing all the information, I do think so, because the push off, was it a push off? Was it not a push off?
Was it? Where do you lie?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. Bob Costas last night did a really good job of kind of breaking it down, where he was basically saying like he compared it to like almost like a love tap.
No, like
he was basically saying
a hostess taking you to your table.
Yep, he was already going in that direction. His arm was just there. So definitely not a push off. Although it's funny because it's so funny how things could change. Because I was talking to my roommate before the episode aired, and we knew that part was going to come up, obviously, just because that was part of the series. And I was like, yeah, was it a push off? You don't know. No one really knows. It was Jordan. They probably gave him the call, right? Me kind of being ignorant to the whole situation, being young at the time, not even watching it live. Like, who am I to say? And then you kind of get schooled to the game, as a legend like Bob Costas kind of explains what happened. Yeah. So now that I think about it, absolutely. Although the picture of him holding the trophy crying is a really good one.
Yeah, especially now when you get the context of, I think the one where he's sobbing.
Yep.
When they beat the Sonics, the Supersonics. But dude, if you really look at that picture, and they showed the people's faces when he goes to pull up before he even takes in, like everyone in the crowd is like, just kind of, if you guys are watching this video on YouTube, cheap plug, he's kind of like all the fans are like, "Oh my god, no!" And then, yo, Shady, I'll send you the picture after, and I'll circle it for you, and I'll
The
put it
tweet
on
you tweeted it. I already saw it.
the little kid, right, with the sixes up.
6.
Yeah, he went like that. Yeah, I can goes like that. 6, yo.
It's
If you
funny
guys,
because then Jordan did 6 after.
yeah, yo, if you guys go to the Instagram, I put it up on Instagram last night, and I asked, did he push off? Did he push off or no? He's at the little kid is wearing a white Bulls jersey, I think, but he's right above the shot clock, and he's doing the 6, bro. He's doing the 6.
He
MJ,
knew.
15 of 35 from the field in Game 6, and they also show how Pippen goes out, right? Then he comes back in and he's hobbled, and MJ tells him like, "Yo, you better not go nowhere. You're a decoy." And it kind of was very fitting to go out that way if you're Pippen and MJ.
And it's so funny too because you think about it, like you even wonder if that would happen in today's age. Pippen wanted a contract. Everybody knows Pippen wanted a contract after that season. Like 6 rings or that one big payday that I honestly haven't had yet. That's like another thing that you got to think about. Like, I wonder.
Nah, yeah, you're right. You're right. And man, I got goosebumps, bro, as we're winding down this episode. I got goosebumps watching that last sequence. And I think the way Bob Costas put it together, how it's the greatest closing sequence of like ever, right? And to think there were no timeouts called, like, dude, how many times is there 2 minutes left in an NBA game in the playoffs?
Phil Jackson, the genius that is Phil.
Yeah, but also think about this, dude. You're watching NBA playoffs on like TNT or ESPN or some shit nowadays, and then there's 2 minutes left, and it's a close game. Say it's nowadays it would be like 103, 108 kind of game.
That was
and then
those games were ending 78, 72.
Yeah, but nowadays, how many timeouts are called after like every possession or during possession, and then the last 2 minutes end up being like a 28-minute real time kind of stretched out extravaganza.
The genius that is Phil.
Man. And the logic behind it made so much sense too, right? You had
so they couldn't sub anyone in or out, and so that they couldn't get set on a defensive play. I mean, look, at the end of the day, like they said, everyone knew where the ball was going, and everybody knew who was going to take the shot in regards to that last shot where everyone's like, what were you supposed to do on the court? Is like, get out the fucking way. Everyone knew, but, you know, like Phil said, you know, not letting them at least regroup and call a play helped out.
Oh, my God. I just remembered, dude, we didn't even talk about Steve Kerr.
Well, yeah.
First of all, at first, I was like, damn, Steve Kerr is getting like his own, like, because every episode, there's 2 common people that are highlighted in every episode, if you've noticed. One is always Jordan, but then another episode is set on a guy who is a key contributor to this run, right? There was one on Phil. There was one on Scotty. There was one on Rodman, right? Then there's one on Steve Kerr. Dude, I didn't know that about his dad, bro.
Yeah, well, and that was why they asked the question, like, did you and Michael talk about your fathers? And at first I was like, wait, they both were murdered.
Yeah.
That is, it's so crazy to think that, like, your teammate, like, you didn't talk to your teammate about, like, the fact that your father's dad died the same way. But that's
especially when you look at the episodes prior, them 2 get into a fight.
Yep.
And it's like, how different. Obviously, it all works out for them because they go on these runs and they become really close friends. And that was kind of the defining moment of Steve Kerr's career, is getting punched by MJ, because that showed MJ that, like, yo, I'm not going to be a bitch and let you, just because you're Mike, you're this, you know, what did Reggie Miller call him? Black Jesus?
Yeah.
Like, just because you're Black Jesus, I'm not going to back down to you. And in a strange way, like, them getting into a fight earned his respect if you're Michael Jordan and Steve Kerr. But to think that MJ goes through this tragic death, like, talk about relating to someone going through that, dude. That was really crazy to me.
And I thought the crazy and the cool thing about Steve Kerr, to kind of lighten the mood, is how he always mentioned, like, John Paxson was my guy. Like, I wanted to mimic my game after John Paxson.
What do I
That's
always say, bro? You need that random white guy that just shoots bad threes.
You need the glue. Everyone needs a glue guy, but
that was really cool too. Yeah, and I
for
thought
him
that
to
was
hit the shot at the end of the game, just like how Paxson hit the shot at the end of the game.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool to see how he showed love to Paxson for that reason. How he groomed him along and told him, like, yo, you want to play like Mike? Look, you can't back down. You got to hit your shots when you get them, because if Mike's going to shoot, 30 times a game and you're going to get 8, well, you better make them count. And think about what a great shooter those guys had to have been too, Paxson and Kerr, to, Paxson in the Sun series going back a couple episodes. That was the first field goal someone made in that game on the road in Phoenix that wasn't Michael Jordan in the fourth quarter. It's like, yo, for you not to I think it's super impressive when a guy comes off the bench after like a 13-minute sit and just hits that first shot. Like, you're not in rhythm.
You're not in rhythm. It's tough.
Like, yo, you just like cold off the bench. You just to bang a clutch 3 like that is crazy.
And he wasn't shooting well that game, by the way, too.
Yeah.
So,
man. How do you feel about? And I guess we could end with this. Two things. The LeBron people, and I'm one of them.
It's too soon.
Right, because his career is not over yet. But has your stance changed on anything? Do you – because nope. I can't front. I've learned so much about Michael Jordan that I didn't know. But I knew a lot of I learned more about the person, not so much the player. Because as a basketball fan, I knew about all the stuff that he's done. Right, I knew about – I couldn't wait to hear the Atlantic City stories because I knew about those, and I knew the aura of MJ. I just didn't know a lot of the off the field stuff. I didn't know about the trials and tribulations with his dad as far as what those details were and some of the other things. But for the most part, like the numbers and whatnot, I knew it. And I'm not going to live in the moment and say that anything has really changed for me. How do you think people should feel if you're pro LeBron?
I would say that, career's not over, so you can't make that judgment yet. And I would agree with you. I would say in regards to Jordan, the stats and the hardware, because everyone has had kind of if you've had the debate, the GOAT debate with LeBron and Jordan, you already know the numbers, right? You already know 6-0 in the finals. You already know all of that stuff. So what I think I took away was I learned a lot about the Bulls. I learned a lot about Jordan's personal life, and I learned a lot about the NBA during their run. I learned I really kind of I learned how good those Jazz teams were and how good those Pistons teams were, and I just think that I learned so much about the NBA as a whole during the Jordan period, which will potentially help an argument when you can say like the teams Jordan played in the finals are better than the teams LeBron played in the final, or vice versa. So I just think it helped contextualize everything. It helped put everything into perspective. Learning about everything helped me understand Jordan a little bit more. But in regards to the GOAT debate, I still think it's too soon, man. I still think it's too soon.
I'll always go back to this. I think it's really crazy that someone is even considering that conversation. It's not bad to be number 2, bro.
I also would respect someone if they thought LeBron was the best, or if after his career is over and if he can win one more. I still think LeBron needs to win one more.
Yeah. You've always been a pro rings guy, though.
Yeah, but I think it's tough because with LeBron, right? LeBron's never. You could argue those Bulls teams that Jordan was on, those were very, very good teams, right?
That was another big takeaway for me, bro. He didn't entirely play with bums.
No,
Kerr was an elite shooter. Ron Harper.
Scottie Pippen, I didn't know Scottie Pippen was a top 3 player in the NBA, top 5 player in the NBA at the time. That's something that was just completely news to me. Did I know he was a top 50 overall player of all time? Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
But think about Kukoc, bro. Kukoc was one of the first European guys to come over and be a game wrecker, right? That one season that Jordan played baseball, how many game-winning shots did Kukoc hit?
Then
he wasn't playing with bums. Like I think it also showed light to how good some of the Horace Grant,
Well, that's the thing.
Pippen, Rodman, Kerr. Yeah,
Horace Grant leaves the Bulls, goes to the Magic, and then what? They're Magic are in the finals, Eastern Conference Finals. You know what I'm saying?
He had the greatest coach of all time. So
yeah,
I do think. Go on.
Well, I was just going to compare it to LeBron, whereas generally speaking, every time LeBron's been in the finals, when the consensus is that LeBron's team is better than the opponent, he wins the championship. Except for the first year against the Mavs,
right,
where I think the Heat had the better roster. Generally speaking, LeBron will win the finals if he is on the better team. Now, I know that's kind of obvious, right? That kind of makes okay, you did your job.
Right.
But that goes to show that LeBron's been at the disadvantage when it comes to the finals, right? Like, his rosters aren't always the best, especially that last season in Cleveland, right? Like, there's just and then the first NBA finals in Cleveland as well, right? When they lost. I just think that he hasn't had, the best supporting cast. And whenever he did, chances are he won a ring. Like in Miami, he won rings 2 out of 4. Yeah.
But went to the finals every year.
But who did they lose to that last year?
The Spurs.
Who were elite. Kawhi Leonard was their worst player? No, sorry, not worst. I mean, 4th best.
Yeah, that was early. That was when the big 3 for the Spurs were still, trucking along. They were still legit.
I think that LeBron's won rings when they didn't have the better team. So it's still up for debate. I think he needs one more, and then we could really get into it.
Well, I think also with LeBron, when you look at his finals record, I remember we did an episode with Danny and Tim way back in the day, and we talked about LeBron versus Jordan. But I think the craziest thing is that Jordan was a favorite every year going into the finals. As far as when the finals started and you wanted to bet aside, he was always the favorite.
Yes.
So when you look at it from the Vegas and the betting perspective, the outcomes were expected. Like, you should have won. Where LeBron has only been a favorite 4 times in the finals, and he's won 3 of them. Like you said, the black eye was the Mavericks one, and it's probably the worst performance of his career. But again, we could save this for another time. My last thoughts on this one, Imp, and I want to get your take on this. I know recency bias. I usually poke fun of it for the most part because I do think sometimes things are misleading. Like last year, I was all in on the Chiefs, and I felt that their odds were very misleading. They were too high because of the Lamar Jackson stuff and the Baltimore Ravens stuff. And you look at the Chiefs, and they're 15-1 to win the Super Bowl in Week 12. You're like, yeah, I kind of like that. I think this is the best documentary I've ever seen. And I mean that across the board on all documentaries. Factor in, 1, I'm a big sports fan, obviously. 2, it covers a guy who's been very mysterious also. Like, he doesn't give you much. And everything he gives you is well calculated. And then also, of course, like similar to the Tiger King, like Tiger King came out during quarantine. Everyone's home and locked in, and everyone's blowing it up on social media. And then the same shit here with this documentary. Man, I really do think that one day I might even do it soon. Binge watch all of it in a row. And I think it's really the best thing I've seen, bro.
I agree. And I think I may have not explored all of the sports documentaries that I possibly can. So I may chalk it up to that, but I do agree with you in the sense that it's the best sports doc that I've ever seen. Granted, maybe what I've seen is a little bit limited, and this will definitely kind of open my eyes to more. When I think of sports documentaries, I actually kind of the first thing I think about are 30 for 30s. And the thing with the 30 for 30s is this was kind of like a 30 for 30 on steroids, right? So kind of comparing it to some of those, of course, this one's the best, but it's because there's so much to it. There's so much to unwrap and there's so much to digest. But I can't think of another one. So I would agree with you.
Well, my good brother, as always, I appreciate you for coming on.
Anytime, bro. Hopefully when everything opens back up, we'll hang out in person.
Yeah. Not even the podcast. Can we go get a beer? Fuck.
Can't wait.
It's been so long. I just want to sip on a little bit, man.
My friend posted something on Instagram. It was just like, this is what a picture of a full beer on a bar looks like.
Yeah. I saw
it
that
was just a beer on a bar.
Oh man.
But yeah,
man. Open invite whenever you need. You just
already
tell me and we make it happen. Where can they find you? Anything change? Anything you doing? Like, what's up? Where can they on the hard top? Like, what's up? TK, you still grinding?
Yeah, man. Although a little bit of a break, I'm playing MLB The Show a little bit. But you can catch me at IMPY718 on Twitter and Instagram. You already know.
At the Lamb Show is where you can find me. At Veterans Minimum is where you can find the show. Give us a rate and review on iTunes. It goes a long way to building the podcast. Check out some of the YouTube content that's coming out. Pretty dope shit. Follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Young LinkedIn Boys. My son Imp put me on. And check out the Patreon. There's some bonus content on there too. Patreon.com/veteransminimum. And I'm very excited for Thursday's episode. And I'll catch you guys next time. Baby.